we are live. Once again, you are listening to the Solvable Mysteries Podcast. My name is Juras, and as every week, I'm joined by my co-host, Glenn Highcove, for episode number 48 of our show. So how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. We're in the middle of our normal. It's weird, like here in California, right around this time of year, right when it's been like really hot, it gets like actually really cool. So today I was actually cold outside, which is real weird because it's like summer in a lot of other parts of the country and the world. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, given kind of all the other things going on in the world, I think I'm doing all right.
Right.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right as well, but like to that end, it's actually quite hot today here in Lithuania. So it's like, I guess now you're on. Now you know how I feel on most episodes when I'm like freezing in my apartment, like trying to record these episodes. So yeah, okay. So I guess without any further ado, let's jump to today's topic that we decided to, I guess, take a look. And yep, today we're talking about I should say Meredith Kercher case, but it seems that it has sort of transpired itself to be called the Amanda Knox case, because I think she's, what made this story really famous. So we could, without giving too much away, right now you could see her face on the screen if you're obviously watching this on our YouTube channel, Solvable Mysteries Podcast on YouTube. So this is Amanda, and I guess before we get into the case and our thoughts on the actual case and everything that transpired in, I guess, recent years, as well as the time of the death of Meredith Kercher, I think we should start off by talking a little bit about Amanda, how she grew up, and since she's the main character in this case, I think we should start off by talking a little bit about her. So I have a little bit of information on Amanda here in the notes. So Amanda Knox, she did grow up in Seattle, Washington. So she had like 3 younger sisters as well, and she had a mother, Adam Ellis, who was a mathematics teacher, and her father, Kurt Knox, a vice president of finance at the local Macy's. So I guess that's a pretty serious job right there. And I guess they divorced when Amanda was only a few years of age. But yeah, I don't think her parents really played that big of a part in this case. So I think we could just like gloss over them, right?
Yeah. It seems like certainly any of the background I saw so far didn't really go into much until it got to kind of this transitional period when she went to Italy, where it looks like she was first. I guess she was privileged enough that she'd gotten to go to Italy when she was kind of in her early teens, and went with her family, and they had a good time. And I think that left a really positive impression on her about the country when she went to go see Rome and Pisa and the coast and everything, Pompeii. So apparently, after she read the book, this is like a kind of a pivotal moment in her life for lots of reasons. She reads this book called Under the Tuscan Sun, which is some famous book. And I think she decided probably at that point that in the future sometime she would like to spend some part of her early life in Italy. So
I have to say that I completely understand her, because oddly enough, I went to Italy when I was 15 as well. And
oh, wow.
I did go to like Rome and things like that. I don't think I've been anywhere outside of Rome. It was just me and my family, and we like flew to Rome for like a week or something like that when I was 15, I remember. And yeah, like the first impressions of Rome was like it was crazy to me as well to see something like that. Like you have this ancient city that people just get to live in like casually, you know what I mean? Because it was just super weird, because I'm like from Eastern Europe, like the post-Soviet Union Lithuania, where like you have all of these Soviet Union old school buildings, and just a bit of a dump here still, even to this day after the fall of Soviet Union. I guess we're getting back on our feet, but it's not as fast as a lot of people would like. So when I went to like Rome, it was like eye opening, and I remember having like the same exact thoughts that I was like, man, I'm definitely gonna return here, and I'm gonna live here for a while. So I think Rome has that effect on people, you know, when you come from like these generic backgrounds, like, you know, saying like Seattle, Washington, it's a pretty cool place, but I guess it's not Rome. It's not like Rome, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you don't have colosseums in Seattle. You don't have all of these like monuments and all of this like really, really good weather and just interesting history areas, you know?
You know, I'll say, even so, like, because I'm in Southern California, which Southern California is deemed to have kind of what they call a Mediterranean climate, which I think is definitely true from what I've seen of on TV of the Mediterranean. It's funny. I feel like even like the light levels and things like, does that make sense? So like whenever I think, you know what I mean? Whenever I see like, I don't know, like old 90s X-Files stuff or anything filmed in Seattle or even in your neck of the woods where like, or Britain, where like the light level, just the light just looks different. So I'm used to like a lot more, I guess, yellow in my light and a lot more like warm light. So makes sense. it almost kind of like depresses me. Like, even though like Seattle seems like a really cool place, so it seems like it's really cool up north. But the one thing I think that I would have a problem with is I would probably get that seasonal depression from like I'm just used to like sunny sun, if it makes sense. Yeah. Even though I burn so like I can imagine somebody coming from maybe like Seattle, which is super rainy, one of the rainiest parts of continental U.S. And yeah, they go to like Italy, and it's like Mediterranean. You're seeing like all these different. Italy is such a diverse country in terms of I guess both people and landscape. So to see like you were saying, I mean, I can only imagine, like you say your surroundings are fairly boring, and then it's like Rome is like the peak of the peak, right? Like exactly. It's not only is it like beautiful, it's old school beautiful, yeah. So
as well as you've just hit it on the dot completely, because it's super rainy here as well, and it gets like really cold. So when I went there, like the weather and like just the landscape and even like the colors, like even the colors in Rome, Italy, are like it just seemed like they were different, you know. It was like more lively. Here it's like everything's just like stale. It's like a bunch of factories and like post-Soviet Union public housing that now has turned into like private housing, but it's still crap. So it's like factories, you know, like Lithuania was made like to build tanks, you know what I mean? Like we were made to build tanks, and when I go to somewhere like Rome, it's like, oh my god, you know what I'm saying? I want to move here permanently.
Right. You don't even have mountains, right?
No, we have nothing. We literally have nothing.
Wow.
Places like, I don't know, like southern Poland, like Slovakia, they have like this amazing landscape with mountains. We here have absolutely nothing. Nothing. Like Lithuania is you know what I'm saying? It's like if you're gonna come visit Europe, like definitely skip past my country, because there's like literally nothing to see here. So yeah, I hope if I ever work for the government of Lithuania or anything like that, they don't go back and listen to this episode. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Right. Yeah, because you're screwed if they do. Okay. Oh, well. So yeah, I mean, so I see that you know, she graduated from a Seattle prep school in 2005 and started studying linguistics, which makes sense, I guess, for wanting to travel, because that is where, you know, Americans, if you're born here, you may not be very inclined to know a different language unless you're born in like an immigrant family. So that's already kind of different than your average American who didn't grow up in like an immigrant family. So yeah, she studies linguistics, gets good grades, makes the dean's list, which is, you know, pretty good. And she, you know, apparently wasn't lazy. She was working part-time jobs, you know, while going to school to try to fund some travels in the academic year in Italy. So it's interesting because she's described here as outgoing but unwary, and I think unwary is another way of saying maybe naive or not worldly. She may have been kind of sheltered, and it says here her stepfather actually had strong reservations that maybe she was a little bit too naive or not protective enough. I think it sounds like there were just some apprehensions.
Right.
And yeah, I have a little bit of theories about that, but I'll save it for a little bit later in the story.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess let's move into the story. By the way, when you mentioned that she was described as being apprehensive, that made perfect sense, because I do have some comments about her behavior throughout this whole situation. That was, she was definitely naive, and it sort of leads me to believe that maybe I will save my own opinions for a little bit later on in the show, because we still need to keep this thing structured. So let's move into, I guess, the events that transpired after she, I guess, graduated school. So somewhere around that time, she has been to Italy before, and she was like, I really want to go back here for to find myself or something like that. Especially in that Netflix special, she sort of stated that she really wanted to quote unquote find herself and discover who she was. So it's I guess something that people after school tend to do. So she went to Perugia, which is a city in Italy now. Yeah, as I've mentioned before, man, if you come here, you definitely want to stay here for a while. It's look at this place. It's a gorgeous place, and
Wow.
and it's actually in the middle of Italy. So it's pretty near Rome, because Rome, I believe, is in the Lazio district. So she was literally in the heart of Italy. So I mean, who could blame her that she was having a good time, so basically in Perugia, I didn't really get, maybe you can enlighten me here a little bit more. Wait, did she she had some sort of a university setup where she was doing yes, something like that.
It was some kind of, it was interesting because it was it was some kind of study program. So it was substituting, I guess, for a year of college or something for her. But per her own description, it wasn't very academically rigorous.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. That's fascinating to me, because I'm always so impressed with people that come here from another country where this is their second or third language, and then they study a college level topic or subject in the language that's not even their original language and that they're not even that proficient in. So that's already amazing to me. So in a way, I'm kind of impressed. Maybe that points to some kind of ability she had, that she could be so good with her Italian and doing this program. I mean, who knows? Maybe some of the classes were in English. Because
I feel like some of them were in English, because we have this whole situation where people from one country goes to this to another country for university stuff, and it's all European Union sponsored stuff, and you just get a bunch of money to do nothing. So perks of the European Union when you're a student. So I think it was one of those situations where she just went there. She realized that there was literally almost no pressure to do well academically, so she even got the job. She even got the job. That was pretty crazy. You know what I'm saying? You come to study and you end up having a job, a 9 to 5.
Which by the way, was at basically a bar, right? So that just for context, in America, because we're so restrictive with alcohol and the age, that's one of those things. I know a lot of Americans get kind of blown away and sometimes go a little nuts when they go to Europe. Some of the research videos I saw, I mean, it's not fair to her, but people taking videos of her when she was drunk, and they were kind of she's saying drunk stuff on the videos, and to be fair, it's especially at that age, if you've never done any serious drinking before, which it kind of sounds like that was the case, maybe this is the first time that she even got out from under mommy and daddy's thumb where she could party a little bit, she wasn't a partier. So it's a little douchey to be taking videos of somebody like that. I mean, they didn't know it was going to be an international case, but no one ever took videos of me drunk. So
exactly.
just context, right. At 18 or 19. But anyway, so she's working in a bar. So that's I don't know, like I said, not something you could do at that same age in America.
Exactly. And also, before we get into the whole situation with who her employer was, because he was a pretty big character in this whole case, she was living in a 4-bedroom ground floor apartment in a house at Via della Pergola 7 with 3 other women. So her flatmates, 3 other women. Wait, wasn't that 4 other women? I'm not sure. Wait, her flatmates were Meredith Kercher, so a British exchange student, that I do have her picture right here because, she was the one that sadly passed away during all of this situation, so she's the real victim in this case. She also lived. Oh yeah, she also lived with 2 Italian trainee lawyers. So for some reason, prior to reading the script right now, I sort of had this vision in my head that there were like 3 lawyers, like 3 trainee lawyers. But maybe I was. Yeah, I think I was wrong. So yeah, it was Meredith Kercher as well as these 2 other Italian girls who were basically studying law. And so it was a, I guess, apartment arrangement in such a, like, their living, I guess, arrangement was sort of situated that Meredith and Amanda, since they were both like English speakers, they lived right by each other. Like, I think like on one of the floors of this house, and then on the other floors you had those 2 Italian girls who lived there. But it seemed that they all got along pretty well, right? I mean, especially Meredith and Amanda, it seemed like,
Yeah. I mean, they all kind of barely knew each other because they had not really been around each other that long. I think, from what I understand, Amanda Knox and Kercher really only knew each other for a couple of weeks. So, it was kind of, they hadn't really bonded that much. I mean, they'd spent some time together, obviously, like you would, but yeah, I mean, they weren't.
And this is very important for like the comments that I will make later on the show. It's only 2 weeks, but then, later on, I think Amanda was like speaking like regarding Meredith, that, like how important she was to her life and all of that. So I just thought it was a little weird. You only knew her for 2 weeks. And then, you did like really questionable stuff during like the trial, and now all of a sudden you're like really sad about it, and you're selling books at the same time. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but yeah. So let's move into, I guess, some other situations that transpired. So the last character that we have to I guess there are 2 more characters. Well, one of them is gonna come up shortly because he is, I guess, the main suspect in this case. But then I guess there's this one other man who we have to sort of talk about, and it's this guy. So this man right here, he is Raffaele Sollecito, or I probably butchered his name. Did I get it correct? I think it was.
Yep. I think it's so funny because it's funny because I think I want to say it that wrong. I want to say it that way. I've heard the British press pronounce it a different
Sollecito,
way.
I think.
Yeah, it's so weird because like Italian and Spanish are real. Like in Spanish, if it wasn't for the double L part,
right,
it would be Sollecito. If it was in Spanish, technically it's like Sollecito, but because of the double L. But in Italian, it's different. But yeah, let's just say Sollecito, even though I've seen it pronounced all sorts of weird ways by the British press. But the British press are notorious for saying lots of words wrong anyway. So
I just sort of got like a brainstorm idea right now. Okay, so first of all, Raffaele and Amanda, they sort of became boyfriend and girlfriend, and they did the whole boyfriend girlfriend stuff, I guess, for like a week, going out, dinner, spending time together, all of that stuff right now. But like I remember from one of the Netflix specials that Amanda was shown on, that she stated that she really liked Harry Potter. And I'm pretty sure you know where I'm heading here.
Yeah. He looks like it's true, right?
What? Because she was reading Harry Potter in like different languages. She said, "I got like a Harry Potter in German."
And he looks like a German Harry Potter. He does, right?
Man. oh my god, because I just noticed that. But yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
that's a
how he
good
looked
one.
back in the day, and ever since his career of, I guess, doing man buns on Italian live television took off, he really changed his look. So this is how he looks now. So not that much of a Harry Potter anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, so basically this guy was the boyfriend of Amanda Knox, and they sort of did their thing, for a week. But then it all came to a bloody end, So I guess this is the time where we get into the whole situation, like the dark stuff. So
Yeah, just real quick about their I mean just to be kind of fair to their relationship. It's interesting because I'm gonna speculate. I don't know this for sure, but the way it was kind of described in the Netflix show, it sounded like maybe I don't know if she had relationships before, or if she had, it hadn't been like too in depth. Like she definitely seems like she went to Italy without any attachments, and it sounds like at least the way she viewed herself in America was that, and I think this is normal for like especially a big East Coast city like the joke in Los Angeles is Los Angeles, you see a lot of attractive people, especially attractive people from like other parts of the country where like they were literally the best looking person in their small town, and they thought they were going to come here to like Los Angeles and like be a movie star and all these things, and like they're like waiting tables and stuff because hey, guess what, like every week 10,000 more incredibly beautiful people that are like the top 1% of their town come here, so like you're not special at all. Like the joke is like someone who's like a 10 in their town is like an LA 6 or something. Anyway, it sounds like maybe that was the case. It's harsh,
not much of a town then,
Yeah. I mean, but it's like it just it's
but
true.
yeah,
Like
I get your point. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like the town has 1,000 people, and you're like the best looking one. And it's like, guess what?
you
You're not
have this
special here.
psychological expectation that that it's like diluted. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So it's almost like the opposite happened to her, where she was like, she's definitely by most standards, I would say, by most people's decisions, she's an attractive person with great facial features.
Yeah, no
and
doubt.
in Seattle, she was just like, just like kind of. I mean, I'm sure she was attractive, but she didn't have a lot of attention, more than, I guess, it doesn't sound like it, at least, or maybe she was oblivious to it. But she goes to Italy, and all of a sudden she's like this stereotyped gorgeous American blonde that everyone's paying attention to her, and I think that was like a difference. She wasn't used to that level of attention, and then even what's his name there, Sollecito,
right,
is saying like in the Netflix show. It's funny because he's saying he's at the bar, and this girl is, Amanda's looking at him.
I don't
and
think it was a bar, by the way. I feel like it was
no, it was a chocolate thing, right? Some kind of like community, some kind of
musical,
festival,
like
some kind of event. And he's like, this girl's like, Amanda's checking him out, and he's like looking behind him like, dude, is she looking at me? Like, especially the way he looked back then. Yeah, no wonder. But like, yeah, he can't even believe that this person who he finds, to be like a 10 is like even giving him a second look. He figures like, oh, it's some other dude behind him. And then, her version of it is that like, hey, this is a guy that's kind of like fits what she likes in somebody. And
German Harry Potter,
Yeah, German Harry Potter, who knew, right? That's his niche. I mean, I'll say that like, when I was that age, I know that as a guy, I was very insecure about what I thought women were attracted to, and then I find out later, oh no, like there's lots of different flavors that people are attracted to, but it is interesting that her point was like, I will tell you, because I've heard and seen this before, kind of the stereotype of how like Italian men have a little bit of a reputation for being very aggressive, and like that apparently is culturally appropriate there. And it does not play well in America in most cultures. In some cultures it does, but in a lot, especially just saying like I'm probably from kind of the same general social class and background that Amanda is, it doesn't play well here at all. Like it has the opposite effect most of the time, where it's like, you know what, you're selling too hard, like I don't like this. So
right. It's definitely more of like a Southern European and then maybe like Eastern European thing, And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think like in the Western Europe as well as like most of the
Northern
US,
Europe.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's more of like you're more like chill, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
you're more like relaxed,
It's not.
especially in California, you know.
I'll say it's funny because I would say it might be like an English thing. Also, that like America originally, English settlers
Yeah,
kind of set some of the cultural direction. Yeah, I feel like even amongst like the lower class in England, it's not considered like appropriate to be that hardcore, like coming at somebody, aggressively. So yeah, just
yeah,
so for that reason, I think he probably, strangely enough, was more appropriate for somebody coming from a culture and a background where she wasn't into that. And like that's maybe also maybe because he was more passive, and more gentle, quote unquote. Like that,
yeah.
maybe that's what made him attractive. So
Right. Okay, so uh, yeah, that's a great analogy. So okay, so they are doing their thing, right? And let's get into the whole murder case of Meredith Kercher. So let's jump right into it. So the walkout semi-basement apartment of the house was rented by a young Italian man. I'm just reading off the script right now, like the details regarding the murder. So both Kercher and Knox were friendly. So they were so both Meredith Kercher and Amanda Knox, they were actually friendly by like with their neighbors, I guess. And then one Giacomo Silenzi spent time in the girl's flat due to the shared interest in music, returning at home at 2 a.m. One night in mid-October. So essentially, from what I've just read, I could just say that Amanda Knox and Meredith Kercher, they actually were friendly with a lot of people in town, and since they were both, saying internationals there, they were really getting along with like the Italian people. I guess they wanted to explore what was happening. And I guess 3 weeks before the death of Meredith Kercher, Amanda Knox actually went to the Euro Chocolate Festival. So this is another interesting detail. So I guess I believe this was before she went to Italy in general, or maybe it was during her time in Italy. She just went somewhere else. Not really sure. So as we've mentioned before, on October 20th of 2007, Meredith Kercher became romantically involved with Silenzi, so I guess one of the neighbors and whatnot, after going to a nightclub with him as part of a small group that included also Amanda Knox. And yeah, I guess then on November 1st, so around 10 days after this whole, I guess, clubbing event, there was a public holiday in Italy, essentially. Now, I'm sure you in America have a little less of them than we have here in Europe, because it seems like every month we have like a public holiday here, where you essentially don't have to go to work. So that was exactly what Patrick Lumumbo, the boss that I'm gonna show on the visuals right now. I think I have him somewhere. Let me just quickly find him. So this is the guy who was Amanda's boss at the time. He was the owner of the bar that she worked at, and he basically texted her that Amanda, you don't need to come to work today. I don't know if he mentioned that it was the public holiday. I'm pretty sure she knew by that time. And then she responded, and this is a very important response message that she said, because it will come up later on in this case, especially during her trial, that okay, Amanda responded to Patrick, okay, I'll see you later. And some of the prosecutioners took that as Amanda saying that later that evening, so that was taken out of context. And I think a lot of things the Italian police took out of context in this case, right? So essentially, moving further into this story, Meredith Kercher returned home around 9 p.m. that evening and was alone in the house. and just after midday on November 2nd, Knox called Kercher's English phone, but thought Kercher kept the phone in her jeans and could always be reached on it. The call was not answered, however. Then Knox called Filomena Romanelli, one of the two Italian trainee lawyers she and Kercher shared the apartment with, and in a mixture of Italian and English, she wasn't super fluent in Italian, so it was a little bit of a challenge speaking with locals for Amanda. Amanda did stated that she was worried that something may have happened to Meredith since she didn't pick up her phone, and then I guess Knox and Raffaele Sollecito, they were at this time, by testimony of Amanda and then obviously Raffaele, they were staying at their at I believe Raffaele's place, which was really nearby. So they were like having dinner and like just doing boyfriend girlfriend stuff in basically Raffaele's apartment. They were like hanging out, chilling out, and essentially at I believe now what was the time that that Amanda returned to the apartment? I think it was like the next morning, right? Like 10 a.m. something like that in the morning, I believe, right?
Yeah, let's see. Because I see they made the phone call at about. Oh yeah, wow. Yeah, I think the notes are a little bit sketchy, but it sounds like it was somewhere maybe 10, 11 a.m. where she goes back and she gets into the apartment, so that she goes and like the door's ajar, which is already pretty weird. And I think this is maybe what happens next speaks to a lot of, once again, her being naive. So the door's ajar, she goes in, there's like a little bit of a mess inside the apartment. She doesn't really, this still doesn't turn on alarm bells in her head.
You know what?
She goes,
you know what have turned the alarm bells for me? Because she went into the house that she was living at, and the front door was open.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like around here, we like lock the door like all the time. So if I'm coming back home and I see my door unlocked, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she was like thinking that this was an Italian thing, but I'm pretty sure it's not an Italian thing. You still have to pretty much lock your doors. You come home and you see the door is unlocked. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. For me personally, that's like red flag central right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, what the hell, man? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this in the show before, but somebody I was in Boy Scouts with, they got killed that way. They both.
The Boy Scouts. You really have some stories from the Boy Scouts.
Oh, I know. Man. Yeah, I got too many, I bet. But both him and his pregnant wife separately were killed by someone who broke into their house and hung out in the house for an hour with the alarm going off, and killed them both, the door ajar, etc. So super dangerous. It's a sign. I'll tell you, like here, honestly, the cops often will tell you, don't go in the house, call us and we'll actually clear the house for you for free. They'll come. Like I've had it happen. Like I had my door below open in a storm on Thanksgiving, and while I was gone, and the cops came in with shotguns and cleared the entire house to make sure nobody was in. So I mean, nobody. It was just the wind. But so she goes. So right away, that's weird. And then she goes in the bathroom and she sees like some blood on like the sink, and she kind of shrugs it off. I mean, to be fair, like there's different reasons there could be blood in the sink, right? I mean, it is a little bit messy, and usually women are not messy around each other or anyone else in the bathroom. But she seems like a little. Like I said, once again, I know for context, she and her boyfriend have been smoking a lot of weed for the past few days. Which
I was like, where did they get the weed in Italy?
I mean, I'm assuming. I don't know, from across the Mediterranean somewhere, or maybe Afghanistan. So they were. I mean, that's the other thing. It doesn't sound like she was too used to getting weed. So maybe she had a little bit of a weed hangover the next morning, and maybe that was part of why she seemed a little bit sloppy with some of the catching on to things.
And that's crazy because, like, what's his name? Like, Sollecito, like the Harry Potter guy. He doesn't seem like he's someone
weed
who would
type.
like, do weed in a place where weed is illegal.
He's breaking stereotypes. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, he's a little wilder than he looks. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why she's getting drunk and getting stoned all the time, staying up late. Maybe that's cognitively getting in the way of how she's reacting to things. But whatever it is, she she goes and then she notices on the rug, like kind of like the shower rug or the bathroom rug. She's like, wow, there's like a bloody footprint there too, and that's once again, like I guess maybe she thought that someone in the household was having like their menstrual period or something, and maybe blood
stepped in their period.
taking out a pad or a tampon and
just didn't clean it, just left it there.
Yeah, which once again doesn't seem like, I don't know, doesn't really match what I've experienced in my life in different households.
And it doesn't match, and it definitely doesn't match Meredith Kercher. Because from all accounts, she was a really sophisticated, smart girl, and it just, from all that I've heard, it definitely doesn't seem like her. And then also, this one other detail we have to mention, we can't gloss over it. Someone took a shit and didn't flush it.
Well, yeah. So that was the part. So that was the interesting part. She goes and she takes a shower and she even dries her hair and stuff. So I think given the timing where the phone calls don't start happening until closer to 1, I guess that makes sense that she goes. She takes a nice long shower, from her night out with her boyfriend. Dries her hair, which that must have taken a good 15-20 minutes, and then she sees that someone has left a really messy crap in the toilet, and that is actually for all the things we just listed, that was actually the thing that started her the most. So that was, I think once again, finally she did the same math we did, where it was okay, maybe blood in the sink, maybe blood on the carpet,
open door, the door's wide open
door, but leaving a crap in the toilet, that is a bridge too far.
Okay, so, first of all,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure if you take a shit, you don't flush it, it's gonna smell, like shit in the shower. So how did she not notice it prior to taking a shower?
The only thing I can think, I haven't thought about that, but the only thing I can think of is her nose was clogged up from the weed smoking. Like her sinuses maybe were acting up.
Okay, yeah. Oh wow, yeah. I didn't even consider that. Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe she's not used to it, or if she gets allergies up there in Italy or anything. Maybe it's dustier than she's used to. But yeah, it's a good point. So then she gets scared, and she calls the boyfriend, Sollecito, and she's like, "Hey, all of a sudden things don't seem right here," and then I guess the door to Meredith's room was locked. She wasn't answering the door.
Right.
So that was just, it was too many things that were setting off bells. Now, I would have said that's a good time to leave the apartment, throw on whatever clothes you have and get out of there. But for whatever reason, she's stuck. I don't know if she waited outside or not, but the boyfriend goes to go see her because he's right nearby. He's 5 minutes away. So he lives 5 minutes away. So he goes and he's trying to kick in the door, and he's not too good at that. To be fair, that can happen to anybody, but that's when she makes a call to her mom. I don't know why she called her mom to call the Italian police, but
wait, that's what happened?
Yeah, I think that's somewhere in these notes that there was 2 different calls. There was the call to
we couldn't just Sollecito do that in the phone call?
Yeah, I know in the show they only had Sollecito's, probably just for brevity. They had a call to Sollecito's his 911 call basically to the Italian police. Now it's interesting because when he gets in there, he notices, by the way, before he does this, he notices way more details. He's like, hey, there's a broken window over here, there's a mess over here, this doesn't look at all like the household I'm used to.
I feel like Sollecito is he's better at noticing stuff than for say Amanda.
His tolerance is way better. I will say, out of fairness, the one thing I will say is, I know I've had, it's like my wife and I will go back and forth.
Yeah.
Where there'll be things that she notices that I don't notice, and then there'll be other things that to me were really obvious.
Oh.
Where I was like, did you not see this and that? And they're like, well, I had no idea. So maybe it's just that. I said, I feel like maybe she had the weed hangover going on. So
yeah, that could be the case, man. Because like it's hard to not notice, like, because we are seeing this in the visuals, like that stain. Like let me just bring it back.
Bloody handprint on the wall.
Let me just
and, like,
bring it back. Like that stain.
Yeah,
doesn't look like,
broken windows on in the house. It's kind of weird for somebody that went through a door that was ajar. She seemed to really kind of assume, like, maybe that's what her stepfather was apprehensive about, was that she was kind of like had not really been challenged by life that much yet.
Right. Yeah, but then the police do arrive at some point, and what do they find in Meredith Kercher's room was pretty dark, right?
Yeah. So they go, and looks like there's been a struggle, and Meredith Kercher is wrapped up in a comforter underneath it, and it seems like she's potentially been sexually assaulted, and she has a very deep neck wound, which was the cause of death. Yeah, like someone had cut her throat. So
yeah, it says here a deep throat wound. Yeah.
Yeah, so that it has the strong signs of not looking like not laughing out of to be funny, laughing because I guess it's pretty grim. That doesn't look like suicide or anything. It doesn't look like an accident. Yeah.
Yeah, what is really grim, because I like imagine like myself like just spectating the whole situation. Like Amanda is like a little bit hungover from like the last night. She comes to the morning, and then she's like taking a shower, whatever, like everything's like still pretty chill, and then like in the next room, like this scene right here has transpired. It's like, oh my god, just like the airiness of the whole situation, that you could just like like comfortably be taking a shower knowing that like literally like behind that wall that you're taking a shower is like a dead body that has been just gruesomely murdered, and is covered by like like the sheets.
It's someone's life was thrown away. So and then it's interesting because apparently like when the cops get there, they actually push Amanda and Sollecito out of the apartment, and they're like, hey, and then they don't even really find out what happened until like they kind of just lay it all on them, like, oh yeah, your roommate's been stabbed to death, and now,
but this is their reaction right here on the screen.
Yeah,
this is their reaction to what happened. So I don't know, man, I think it's pretty stupid. Well, they sort of because we are looking at them kissing right now after they found out that she was murdered. So Sollecito is wearing his like Harry Potter like scarf right here, and they're like pretty like oblivious to what actually happened in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I think this is a good place to stick a pin in or mark, where probably the Italian investigators, the police and detectives, their perception of Amanda and also the boyfriend, because they did something that they deemed inappropriate to the situation, and like admittedly, like it probably was inappropriate in any culture, but especially their sensibilities seem to have been offended, and it, like I said, it starts to fit into different narratives, and it starts to get them thinking about things that maybe they wouldn't have thought about, theories that they got going in their head that maybe wouldn't have got going if this hadn't happened this way. So they start to get suspicious of the behavior of these two people.
I mean, I would think that is an odd behavior. So I guess let's jump into the case, right? The actual case, and I don't know, I think maybe you are a little bit more well equipped to talk about the case.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So, and this is once again kind of a compilation of different research sources, and also I'll say Dr. Grande, who is you and I have become recent fans.
I love that guy.
Yeah. He's got great summaries of a lot of things. I think like his version of the case is a great cliff notes to kind of compare against our in-depth like he'll focus on things that we don't necessarily focus on here. And I think it's a good way to get between that and the Netflix show, and whatever you read on Wikipedia and what we talk about here is a good way to kind of get a full picture of what happened. But yeah, so this is, I think, where it's interesting because according to both the Netflix special and some of the other sources, they start bringing them in for questioning. And at first, Amanda and Sollecito really they just think like they're there for to help provide information and help the investigators. And at some point, like several days in, the interrogations start to get a lot more intense, and the interrogations become accusatory to the point where both Amanda and Sollecito are like, hey, wait a minute, you think like they start actually getting accused of doing things. And this is where I will say the narrative changes a little bit between who you want to believe. So this is where like a he said, she said thing when it comes to the investigators and them, because both of them say in their interviews on the Netflix show and in other sources that the interrogation exceeded that, like probably did things that in America certainly wouldn't have been legal, and may have crossed the line, I think, almost into like a form of torture. I don't know quite if it would qualify as torture, but it's pretty close. And I know there's EU law and things like that, human rights, etc. So both of them claim that they were struck during the investigation, that supposedly maybe the guards just thought they were trying to jar it out of her head or something. But it sounds like not only were they just unceasing with their assertions to both of them that they had done something and been there and started actually like laying out scenarios for what happened, which shows kind of interesting ideas that these investigators had of this kind of, and I think this is one of the main themes. It seems that these investigators had kind of stereotypes and prejudices, and almost saw, I would argue, not just Amanda but Meredith as well. They had these kind of almost like national stereotypes of how maybe Americans and British people were, and they like
stereotyping people by their like nationality, right?
It
was sort of, I sort of got the sense that the whole like Italian public at that point were sort of not that fond of Americans in particular. At least that's what I've gathered, especially when an American is involved in some sort of a murder. No one really knows at that point, was she really responsible for the death of Meredith? But at the same time, just her being there, or like being like in the scene, as well as kissing Sollecito, you know what I'm saying, like on camera, I think it was just a given that was gonna happen. Maybe there was already this stereotype that Americans were more morally, quote unquote, loose, or like less conservative, or less, because Italians are definitely like on the conservative side, I would say. I mean, it's the capital of Roman Catholicism, certainly, or at least the Pope basically lives there. So I mean, it makes sense. It is a conservative Catholic country, and what the products they see out of America tend to be sometimes the opposite of that, with Scarface and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a lot of sexualized content, a lot of violent content, and without knowing Amanda and then seeing how she was kissing on the boyfriend, they may have said, "Oh, this is some girl who's really wild and maybe sexually inappropriate, not just here, but maybe affectionate." Like they started to project on her these stereotypes. So I think this is a theme we're going to see for the rest of this show today and this trial. Is the different discussions afterwards, is that they started to almost have like project their own kind of, I would say, their own kind of kinky fantasies and the things that were naughty in their mind. They started to almost project, well, maybe she could do that. Maybe this is what you start to see. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, here's the thing. Recently, this has happened this past summer. There was actually a case where a couple of Americans who, I don't know if you've seen this case, maybe we'll cover it later. A couple of Americans got in trouble. They had this kind of like drug deal that went bad, And there's still a lot of questions about what happened, but a police officer was stabbed to death by one or both of the Americans. And it's a massive disgrace. I mean, like obviously it's embarrassing to Americans that happened, but it was interesting because
in what country did this happen?
In Italy. So this happened in Italy, where
okay.
yeah, like a couple of Americans, they had this whole thing. They didn't know the police officer was a police officer. They stabbed him with a knife. They killed him. There's kind of, anyways, but like I'm only mentioning this because they claim, and it turns out it was true, that they were blindfolded when they were brought into the to the police station, which turns out is against Italian law. You can't treat suspects like that. So this is another case where American suspects, are claiming, hey, like they started doing stuff to me that you're not supposed to do, like hit me, and they didn't offer her a lawyer. They didn't make legal counsel available, which to be fair. To be fair, like actually, it's only in America. It's only been in the past 50 years or so that like we've made it so that cops have to tell you that you can have a lawyer. So that didn't used to be the case. You used to just kind of, if you were ignorant of that, they could just keep going. But now they have to kind of tell you. Like when it gets to the part where like you might be a suspect, they need to tell you. Apparently, it's different for Italian law. Whatever the reason, it got to the point where.
By the way,
both of them felt like,
on the visuals, like I just have to bring it back. Like this was pretty funny, don't you think? We're looking at the scene from when they found the apartment, and I'm not sure if you could look at the map. Like she just tries to kicks in the door, and she's like, but look at this, but look at this, my man.
Oh my God!
And then she
all over the place,
and
no
they can't
gloves
open it.
No gloves. I was like, how did she not cut her leg open?
Okay, so I guess just to tie in to what you were saying, the Italian police are sometimes not super professional, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So probably a long-winded way of me saying that it seems like they may have broken some rules during this interrogation. Seems like they had maybe tortured these people in a way, because I mean, if you have somebody someplace for days and ask them the same question over and over again, and they keep giving you the same answer, I mean, at some point, when are you going to be satisfied and say, okay, they told me the truth? Like, it seemed like they were really fixated on pushing this one theory. So the theory that apparently they got both Amanda and Sollecito to admit to, in part, was that this somehow there'd been some kind of kinky sex triangle that Kercher had, between Raffaele and Sollecito and the restaurant owner Patrick Lumumba, who ends up getting blamed and implicated in this, and that Kercher came in and was scandalized because she's a proper British girl. That she came in and was scandalized, and that Amanda got upset, and that all three of them conspired and contrived and then did kill her as part of some weird sex game gone bad. And this is the thing you'll see actually that gets leaked to the press. By the way, I don't know, when you watch the Netflix thing, when you watch the Netflix special on this, there's this British reporter who's like, he speaks Italian, and apparently like that's his beat is covering Italy for Italian press, for British press. Mm-hmm. British press is notoriously tabloid. They're notorious for, I'll just say it, lying, saying things that are not proven to be true. It's interesting that Britain actually has much stricter laws about what you can publish. Maybe that's why, because they push the boundary so much. Yeah. So maybe that's why it's easier to get.
Yeah, I get your point.
Yeah. So anyway, this guy, like, on one hand, and at least in the show, he's kind of like admitting like his part in things and saying what turned out to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But then he also was like the main one pushing these things. And his excuse at the end was, well, if I didn't, someone else was going to do it, and I couldn't give someone else a competitive advantage. But I really thought he was scum. So anyway, yeah, that's just my 2 cents on him. But yeah,
not on Patrick. You were talking about like that English reporter guy.
Yeah, this one English reporter. Yeah. So like, case in point, and maybe this is part of the problem is, he did say something interesting. He said this is basically a small town police department that has a lot of international attention on it because of this case, and has had one murder case in the past 20 years. So they have all this pressure, and they even admitted to the pressure. They have all this pressure on them to basically deliver, and it seems like it kind of went to their heads. So exactly. So yeah, anyways, it seems like they kind of tortured some kind of weird confession out of both of them. They implicate, at some point, Amanda just caves, and I think...
But that's just like, why? Why would you ever, like, say that, yes, Patrick did it? Like, I think, oh my God, like, I think, yeah, that was just a bad move. I don't care how they torture you. Like, at the same time, they will have to stop eventually. Why would you say that he did it? Like, you're doing what they want you to do. It's like, why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah,
I was like, it was so stupid of her to say that Patrick was involved. And it pretty much like she self-implicated, because at that point, if Patrick was involved, then how would she?
She's involved, yeah.
Then she's involved, and like it's like I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's like really, really stupid of her to like implicate both Patrick and then herself automatically, you know.
Yeah, so the only thing I'll say in her defense is it kind of reminds me, when I think about it now, I didn't even thought of this until this moment, the kind of repetition and the something like this happened to Patty Hearst. Patty Hearst was I think she was the granddaughter of a very famous, very rich guy here in the United States, and she got kidnapped by a group called the Symbionese Liberation Army. It was like a terrorist group. Mm-hmm. They kidnapped her, and they did kind of a similar thing where they threw her in a closet for like a week and just shouted like slogans and like propaganda at her for a week and like deprived her of kind of normal things. And she joined them. So this was just somebody that had nothing to do with them, and she robbed a bank with them. She went to jail for this. So
whoa.
Yeah. So there's kind of a Stockholm syndrome thing. To me, it sounds like it's almost like there's another example of this. I think would be there's like a really back in the 90s there was this really controversial stuff. 80s and 90s they'd have like these hypnosis things where they would try to find your like repressed memories, and all of a sudden out of these supposed repressed memories were coming all these fantastic stories of like Satanism, and like there was this whole trial, this McMartin preschool trial where these poor old people at this preschool got accused of like killing children and being Satanists. It was a total moral. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, out of this like. This
oh my God, man, this is crazy.
Concocted out of thin air and coerced statements and BS hypnotism stuff. So I guess I'm not totally surprised. Like I said, a combination of physical abuse, a weak-minded person maybe, and a person that didn't know to tell the cops, like, look, you better charge me or let me go. Like, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Like we're done. I just think like maybe people don't know their rights, and they're known, it's hard. It sounds like they're pretty forceful. Now, maybe this is a good time, by the way, before we get finally into the trial and through the end of this thing, maybe it's a good time to show the prosecutor, because the prosecutor here, as we kind of get into the final stretch, the prosecutor himself, so this guy is kind of a prime character in this whole thing, and he certainly is in the Netflix special. Now he's been promoted since then. He's apparently well regarded. Like he's sort of like a
Giuliano Mignini,
there.
By the way.
Yeah, Giuliano Mignini. He's apparently been promoted to like general prosecutor. But this guy has had some problematic stuff in his past. Apparently, he was involved in a whole crazy accusation against a politician for like arranging the murder of somebody that was overturned later.
That's just Italian stuff, man. Like that's just just a regular day in the office, man. Could be a coin toss, right? Yeah, who knows? But yeah, and then apparently another time he said that there was some whole conspiracy with like the local Masonic lodge, and it was like all people that were respected. So this guy seems to be really into his conspiratorial thinking, and he was, a lot of the stuff that happened in this case was driven by his own ideas. I couldn't find the source, so I'm going to have to quote Dr. Grande. But Dr. Grande was not super impressed with this guy in his analysis. He said like this guy, I think at one point claimed that he was like Sherlock Holmes, and like here's one of the things they did. So one of the things was he claimed that the fact that the girl, that Meredith was
covered up in the comforter proved that a man wouldn't have done that because a man would have never never done that. That's something only a woman. Like he had these very, you know what I mean? He had these very like concrete thoughts.
Yeah, but then again, also only a man would never leave a shit in the toilet.
Shit in the toilet. Yeah,
only a woman would do that.
It was like what's going on with this guy had very wacky stuff. At one point in the interview, he starts mentioning like his Catholic faith and like as if that has something to do with it. And it's just he doesn't seem super credible. I get a real bad vibe off of him. I think you and I mentioned, like he wouldn't. I don't know. Here, I don't think that he would go down so well.
I don't think he has like the most transparent face in history as well. You know.
Yeah, he's kind of scary.
You know what else is cool in the, I guess, judicial system in Italy? I find it really cool how like the prosecutor is also like sometimes like the main detective. I just thought it was pretty cool. You know.
Oh yeah. That's weird, and that I mean that's a good point. So there's a little bit of. Yeah, it's
pretty tough to be a defense lawyer in Italy, you know, when you have all of these things working against you.
It's all stacked against you. Yeah, so he's really, I think, the main motivator of a lot of these wacky theories, and he's definitely the one that brings these to trial. By the way, so Patrick Lumumba, her boss, he gets alibied out right away. Like it turns out, he could have never actually done it. He had like multiple people saying no, he was with us when, you know, during the exact time period that this was going down. Like there was no physical way that he could have been involved at all. So that already shot a big hole in their theory. So then, I guess before we get into their trial, what we should mention is, well, there was someone else, and his name is Rudy Guede, and I think he's also an immigrant. I'm not sure.
I think so.
Yeah, I think he's. I'm not sure where. It's not clear to me exactly where he was from.
Yeah, I don't think it was mentioned, but at the same time, like I think we should get into the further investigation that his DNA was all over the place. You know?
Yeah. He matched it. It turned out they were. He actually. Not only was his DNA everywhere, he had a long record of breaking and entering. It turned out that Amanda and Raffaele were actually. Somewhat as they knew him by face. They didn't really know him by name, but he had turned up at a couple of different like he'd played basketball with their neighbors before, and he hung out with them one time and had asked a bunch of questions about Amanda, by the way. But I guess no surprise since she was pretty. Everybody's interested in her. But here's what's interesting is he has left the country already. So
he went to Germany, by the way.
Okay, So he leaves the country, and he starts saying. So the cops get to like one of his friends and they start like monitoring the Skype conversation. They have like kind of they get their friend to call him, and he's saying like stuff that's implicating himself. Like he's admitting he was there. He's saying in these conversations, Amanda had nothing to do with this. She wasn't even there. And then he says, I think I'm going to kill myself. Okay. So that seems like someone that feels guilty, even though later on what happens is, funny enough, they have totally separate trial for him versus the other two. They kind of have this speed trial. He comes up with some other defense later. He changes his story. He says, oh, well, you know, when I was there, I saw Amanda leaving, and then there was this whole scene, and I knew tries to get out of it.
He said that he saw like a silhouette of Amanda. He didn't say that he's like, I don't know how you can see a silhouette, but you can see like Amanda. So it's like, whoa.
How does that even? Yeah, I mean, he just he was really like. It just was very clear that he was involved. He was the only one whose DNA was all over the place. So, when they have the other trial for Amanda and Raffaele, they're like, well, there's like these little tiny bits of DNA here and little tiny bits of DNA there. Like they found a knife, like a kitchen knife in Raffaele's apartment that had like Amanda's DNA on the handle and a tiny, like actually not even practically statistically significant piece of DNA from Meredith on the tip. And they said, how do you explain that? And of course they couldn't. How could they explain that? But then, as you and I pointed out, and as it comes up later, there were a lot of holes in this DNA collection process. They had not changed gloves. They'd done a lot of things wrong. collected this evidence. And I think Dr. Grande pointed out that like during this trial,
we are looking at at the experts that were handling
can't even get a door open. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
Dr. Grande cited something. I think Dr. Grande did some research into the case through another source. He mentioned that basically one of the arguments was that somehow Amanda and Raffaele had cleaned up all of the somehow they had removed. I don't know how you do this.
You do that by having DNA vision. It's like
magic, yeah.
It's like when you're like an X-Men, and you have like DNA vision. When you see your own DNA and you know where to clean,
right.
And you spit shine everything, but then leave all of Rudy's DNA in there. So I mean, that's a perfectly logical prosecution strategy right there.
Right, that they were like Ant-Man or something. They could do that. Yeah, like it was amazing. But somehow missed it on the murder weapon itself. The murder weapon itself, they missed out.
They missed it.
Yeah,
they missed it. They cleaned everything, but the murder weapon, that tip, they missed it.
Just a little too careless. Yeah, it was. There were a lot of holes in it. It was definitely problematic. So Oh, by the way, Rudy Guede, who, like I said, had just the alibi, had like everything fit, why he would be the most likely suspect and why he should be convicted. And really, I mean, even the feces in the toilet matched him, the DNA matched, everything matched him. He said he was there at one point in a conversation. And he gets 30 years and then they reduce it to 16, which I just as a side note, I always get really annoyed at European jail sentences and legal stuff because I feel like, man, the law, like, I don't know, like some stuff might be better, but I feel like a lot of times these sentences don't have teeth until Americans are involved. So, okay. So
no, but like,
anyways,
that makes sense. But then again, like drug cases are really hardcore here, especially in Eastern Europe. Because for just a little bit of weed, you could get like years in prison. But like then again, you could kill someone and get the same amount of years as just having like a pound of weed. So it's like it's odd. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's another topic, but yeah, I mean, it's bizarre to me, and it's frustrating sometimes when I read about these things. So okay, so then they have this long, kind of drawn out trial. It takes until about 2 years after the murder for the verdict to finally come in, and they throw the book at both Amanda and
Sollecito.
and Sollecito. I mean, they give them 30 years. Say, like apparently they didn't think that they would be found guilty. And during the trial, they're kind of making like little lovey-dovey faces at each other. And I mean, it wasn't.
No, this is really. I don't know how to explain this. This is like no one tell her like not to smile.
Yeah, I just
like what? She's smiling, and these are not like cherry picked pictures. This is literally I just typed in Amanda Knox, like trial, and like in every second picture she's smiling, and I've not seen a single picture where she's sad.
She's just I mean, like you said, no one. I don't know if she wasn't being coached right, or it seems like I said, she may have. I think she might be slightly autistic or have Asperger's or something, and this is maybe why her family was worried for her and why she didn't act appropriate. And also, she's still a really young person here, so that combination of things. I mean, lots of people do things that are just cringeworthy when they're young that they regret later, and certainly I think she didn't. I don't think that she was very experienced, and then like the only time you're ever seeing anybody that likes you is when you're in the court. I don't know. I guess there's a lot of excuses, but I'm not gonna belabor it. So yeah, they get found guilty, and they end up in jail. And here's the other things. So by the way, when they were interrogating them, they told Amanda at one point, they told her she had AIDS. They gave her a blood test. They gave her medical tests. And when they're interrogating her and trying to that blew me away. I was like, what? Because that came up. Oh, they leaked her diary to the press. So she had a private diary that got leaked to the press. Nobody knows how. Wink, wink. But so like a lot of things that are kind of violations of her rights. Like that like even here in America, we don't tell. Like in America, we will lie to suspects during interrogation.
Yes.
And tell them like, oh, the other guy, he just threw you under the bus. Yeah, he told on you. He said we did it just to see. Which, like, there's some questions about whether that's ethical or not.
I think it's pretty ethical. I mean, how else are you going to find out if it happened? I mean,
if
you
it's
go
true
for
or
it.
not.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of problems with it. If you know you're not guilty, then you should stick with it.
Yeah, you should just stick with it. Then.
But we don't tell anybody they have AIDS. So that's
the first time I heard about that strategy right there.
Yeah, what the hell was that about? So that I mean has got to be some kind of violation.
And then she listed everyone she had like sex with in her life.
Yeah, and then it got leaked.
Then it came out, and then the press took it as like she was like this vixen or something like that.
She was like this like and so it just fed into that stereotype once again. So I can't help but wonder at a lot of these tactics. I mean, really, like even let's say what's his name, Mignini. The prosecutor. Yeah, I mean, let's say even if he had nothing to do with that, he should be ashamed of himself, just as a principal taking responsibility for the actions of his delegates, as the leader in charge. He should be ashamed that happened. But
I think he's having. I don't think he's ashamed, man. I think he's having a good time.
Yeah. No, he thinks so. She deserved it. Okay, so anyway, for all that, they go and they both spend about 4 years in jail. In fact, Raffaele spent, I couldn't believe this. They put him in solitary for 6 months. Like he was, like Scarface or something. Like, what is going on? I mean, maybe that was for his own protection, but that doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it was something punitive. And by the way, it's just worth mentioning, it's funny because he was kind of like they show pictures of him when he was a kid and he was kind of chubby. And then even, like you said, he looked like kind of a slightly chubby German Harry Potter. Man, he got like way more handsome from jail. Apparently being in jail for 4 years will like handsome you up, because he lost like a bunch of weight. He looks like a soap opera star now.
Yeah, so like for real.
Like, yeah.
Well, he looks really good, for a guy.
Yeah. I was actually, it was hard to reconcile how he looks now versus how he looked then. Like, he looks like a totally different person.
Maybe that's why Amanda doesn't like him anymore. You know what I'm saying?
He's out of her zone now. Yeah, that's not what he likes. So, okay. So, anyways, what happens is they have some appeals, and to their credit, after all this, the Italian court system looks at this, and I think, like I said, they've had some problems with this prosecutor before.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's a lot of back and forth with them about this, and they go, hey, you know what? We looked at the way you guys, like, we've had some experts from the defense side look at how they compare kind of the standards of how DNA was collected and the evidence done, and really taking a look at it. And there's some major flaws in how the DNA was collected, the conclusions brought. So they throw the case out, and Amanda gets to come home to America, and Raffaele gets to leave jail as well. And then a little while later, they retry the case and they find them guilty again. Yeah. And then it gets appealed again, and once again the court's like, no, this is wrong. Like once you guys just retried this, and the same insinuations and strange theories and stuff that isn't really like scientific that you did before. So this time we're going to dismiss it. We're going to dismiss it with prejudice, where you can't bring this to trial anymore. Like, we're done with this case. No one's. Yeah,
like, they would amend them or something.
Yeah. Like it was actually like they were serious this time. We're not going to talk about this. So I thought this is interesting. This is a good thing to mention, that in America, I feel like whenever you have people that don't want to be part of like a world government, so like, eventually, like, there's always, I mean, it's not said as much anymore, but like in the 90s, they used to talk about like, well, maybe at some point, like, because it would be a way to optimize, like, get everybody swimming in the same direction, right? If you could have America and Europe and all the other continents, let's say, be part of one world government, in theory, you could like take all these resources and like somehow, like, I guess, marshal us all and united in one direction, and et cetera, but I think this is where Americans, well, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, especially now, right, with all the fighting and stuff, but I think that's where like Americans point to this stuff and they're like, hey, like, I don't know that everything's so perfect over there. I don't really want to be held. Like I have to say, after watching this thing and like, you know, doing the research, this is one of those cases where I'm like, yeah, I mean, that kind of makes me not want to go to Italy. Like, to see that they kind of screwed this up so badly and have these weird like are they going to think something about me because I'm from America, that, like, you know, something, you know, like, look, like what a like fateful decision. Like, Amanda went from being like just this normal person, having a normal life, and you know, who knows what her life would have been like here without that. But like, wow, the decision to go live in Italy sure didn't work out well for her. Like,
well,
she lost.
Later on, it sort of did.
I mean,
She's out here selling books right now, man.
She's selling books and stuff, but I mean, it sounds like I don't know. I mean, it still sounds like making lemon. I don't know. For my opinion, to me, it looks like making lemonade from lemons, where she goes in public and she gets recognized and she doesn't want to be recognized. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it is.
Allegedly,
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's what she says. But like, I will say, like, here in America, like, I've seen the paparazzi at work before. They're awful. Like, I don't know if it's like that where she lives, but like, I've been on Sunset Boulevard trying to walk back to my car, and like had photographers almost run me over trying to take pictures of some. I don't even know who it was they were taking pictures of. Somebody that they were harassing that was famous, I guess. And this is an area where there's a lot of famous people, so this happens a lot.
Right.
They are horrible, and like, yeah, some of those people want it because like the Kardashians supposedly actually tip people ahead of time.
Yeah,
so
you call the paparazzis on yourself now when you're really looking sharp.
You're looking for it, but when you're like, I don't know, when you're someone that wasn't an actor, wasn't a model, wasn't in the entertainment industry, isn't selling perfumes. I mean, I don't know. I really, especially in this country with that paparazzi, but it sounds like Europe too with the British tabloid press stuff. I mean, everything was like Amanda this, Amanda that, and it's like, yeah, you know, like, I don't know. Even if at some point it's lucrative to you or you like the attention, right? At some point, I think it gets real old. So.
I mean, that's a great roundup right there. I think, you know, since we're like approaching that cutoff point for the show. I mean, what I was, you know, sort of thinking. I mean, sure. It seems that you want to say something right now.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I had a couple other funny things I wanted to know. I guess as we're wrapping it up. So one thing was, by the way, the lawyer for Rudy Guede. So, you know, like, cause he's sort of, it seems like the Italians, maybe we'll see this in the comments back, but like the Italians are a little bit sensitive about this case. Like, a lot of them still think like Amanda was very guilty. They're kind of frustrated by the case because to them it's almost like an OJ case or something where someone that maybe seems really guilty got off, or some, you know, some kind of wasn't guilty. Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, to them, she seems very guilty because of the reasons, like you mentioned, like the weirdness about her and kind of their stereotypes, and I guess I'll say also maybe they have a lot of pride in their legal system. So the lawyer on that thing said that one thing that was like, I was like, wow, where
what did he say?
So he says, you know, because Americans are kind of like I just said, I've said like, I don't really think much of your court system or your investigatory abilities, Italy. And he's like, oh, well, you know, that court that they had the trial in, it was built in 1309, and it was like he claimed it was like the first like some kind of law, the first place that organized some kind of law. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure Europe had laws before that. So his claims were pretty weird. But you know what he said? This is the time to get Americans mad. He said that was built in 1309, that building, and it's still standing, and we have law. We've been doing law there since then. Do you know what they were doing in America in 1309? They were drawing buffaloes on the walls of caves. And I was like, wow, that's wrong for a lot of reasons, which I'm not going to go into. Right. But it was like, whoa, okay, so this is the douchebag that defended Rudy, and that's his defense is Americans are drawing buffaloes in caves in 1309.
I mean, all the defense system in Italy, at least in this case, seems that it's based on emotions, like getting people emotional. You know, it's like the Italian way. It's like, you know, it's me. You know, like something like that. You know?
Yeah. It's very, I don't know. So I once again, it's sort of. I don't know. So that I think was pretty striking to me. I think I already mentioned I'm not happy about the prosecutor's attitudes. I'm not happy about them telling her she had AIDS or any of that other stuff that came out. It just seems like it was stacked against they were eager. They even said this in their statement. Yeah, they were eager to kind of charge. They were eager to kind of have a big bang, and maybe they were trying to placate political interests.
And there was public pressure as well to get the case sort of. Also, I think, since I think it's a good time to like sort of give our theories, because we always do that, at least in our recent episodes. So I'm gonna go with like Rudy Guede was the only killer, in my opinion, from the research that I've done, and I am sort of definitely leaning towards that. Amanda Knox as well as Raffaele Sollecito, they are innocent in terms of the death of Meredith Kercher, but they're definitely guilty of doing some stupid stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just the scenario they laid out of like sexual promiscuity and like some kind of weird.
Amanda was doing like splits, stretches in the waiting room while she was waiting, while Sollecito was, while they were interrogating Sollecito, and they was like, "What is she doing?" So she's like doing splits. Listen. This is the only thing I want to get in this podcast before we wrap up. Like, let's listen to some of her recent interviews. Let's say here
that you went in there for some kind of freaky sexual activity that went wrong, and your roommate wound up dying.
Wait, I think I can find a little bit better one where I just really want to make a point here. Maybe let me just quickly find a place where I could really make a good point here, because I definitely know that there was this one interview that she has done, which is definitely odd to me. Like, let's listen in on this particular one.
I have gained financially in the telling of my story, and that has nothing to do with Meredith. Do you think it's disrespectful yourself to Meredith's memory, Meredith's family? When I first saw them, it was in court, and I saw from their faces that they thought I was the one who killed their daughter. I would hope that they wouldn't have those faces now. But even if they did, I'd ask them,
like, "Hi, I'm Amanda Knox."
Yeah, like, she's super sad right here, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely feel like she's selling it. In all of those interviews, she seemed like she's really selling it. But then again, she's super sad about it in these interviews. But then we look at the actual trial pictures, she's smiling everywhere. She's smiling all over the place. Like, I get the sense that if you would think that maybe she saw her family members that she didn't see and she smiled to them, but she's smiling literally to everyone. Like, there are pictures where she's smiling like everywhere. Obviously she's crying in some of them, but like, she's like, is she like, how many parents does she have? Like, are they literally all over the place that she's like looking at every angle and she sees her parents and she's like smiling? She's doing stretches, she's doing all of this and that, and now she's selling books. So, it's,
I just wonder if maybe the stuff where she's like really sad and stuff and saying, "Oh, I'm sad for the family," makes you wonder if that's like kind of after the PR people and the other people are like, "Hey, just so you know, when you weren't like that, it didn't look right. Like the optics weren't good. So what you need to do," like, maybe that's her sort of trying, you know what I mean? Like trying, and by the way, not doing a good job of it. So maybe that's what I would say here is what I kind of get reminded of. There's a movie Claire Danes did about a famous autistic woman called Temple Grandin. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
Nope.
Temple Grandin is like the George Washington of autistic people. So she's like, she's just, it's a weird thing to say, but she's like, it's like Temple Grandin was this like kind of semi-severely autistic woman, like functional autistic woman who has become like not only an important person in her industry, which is the cattle and the kind of meat packing industry or slaughterhouse industry, but she's also been like, if you have an autistic kid, she's really inspirational because you're like, oh my gosh, maybe my kid has hope. My kid can be functional. I just having seen that and then kind of seeing, I'm not saying that Amanda's like super autistic. I'd say that she's showing some traits that might indicate that she's got something on the spectrum, not super autistic or Asperger's, but like
something, just something,
10%, 15%. If I, just my own like amateur, armchair psychology. So yeah, I mean that's the only thing I say with her is she doesn't. I guess it's unfortunate. Like once again, like someone doesn't choose to be weird. It's unfortunate.
Yeah,
we've seen this before. Sometimes a weird person gets caught up, or weird two people. Because what's his name? Raffaele seems weird too. Like when two weird people get caught up in something that maybe coincidentally makes them look guilty. Like it sucks for everybody. I mean, it certainly sucks for Meredith's family that she seems to have been victimized by this random person that, saw an opportunity, probably scoped it out, probably saw that like, hey, looks like he kind of like seemed like maybe he was keeping tabs in that place a little bit. Like maybe he didn't even expect her to be there, but then she was there, and he seems like he was kind of a violent, degenerate person, to do that. So yeah, maybe, and it sounds like he felt guilty about it too, because he thought about killing himself. So, whatever happened there, yeah, it's pretty odd.
It's a messed up case, man. It's definitely a messed up case. So before we sign off, I guess I just want to add that I really feel bad for like Meredith Kercher, because I think this case has sort of turned into the Amanda Knox case, when I really think it should be all about Meredith, because she's the one that lost her life, in 2007, and I just really feel bad for her. That's why I definitely don't. I'm not like particularly fond of Amanda Knox, because she's out here like selling books. Yeah, like she spent like 4 years in prison, but at the same time, like it's like. I think she took over the case a little bit, and she sort of, I just get the sense that she's still like a little bit like milking it, like here and there. It's like, come on, man. It's like everyone's like, at least like the family members, everyone's like trying to forget about it, and she's like, I wish they could take me to the Meredith grave. She's always gonna be in my life. But then you knew her for like 2 weeks or like a week or something like that, and then you're like doing splits, in the waiting rooms like the next day, and then you're like, oh my god, like I wish her parents would forgive me, this means so much to me, while she's like cashing out them book sale checks.
I mean, from my perspective, the doing splits thing almost, it's funny how like they read it one way, like, oh, this is a promiscuous person, and I read it like, oh no, she's like emotionally, something's wrong with her, like not in a murderous way, or like I'm a temptress who can somehow convince two other men to commit a murder with me, because at some point they switch Patrick with Rudy as the third person that helped them, since his DNA was all over the place. Like to me that just looks like somebody who might have a mental issue. Like that was, what I mean? But it was interesting that it fed right into their stereotypes. Of like what happened, and kind of their weird kinky theories. I mean, I guess as we're kind of wrapping up here, the final minute or so, I'll say this does seem to be, once again, maybe the curse, the pretty woman's curse. When you're so attractive, so many people pay attention to you, sometimes for the wrong reasons, and they project so much onto you, and then it's like, once again, like just like if she wasn't as attractive as she was, or maybe she wouldn't have had any of this stuff happen to her, maybe they wouldn't have projected anything, they would have said, this person's crazy. But it's almost like they assume she's sane because she's pretty.
It's like,
that's strange.
Pretty people just, especially
can't be crazy.
Pretty girls just can't win, you know what I'm saying, like in these situations. So this has been episode number 48, and I think I really enjoyed talking about this case with you today, and I've actually learned a little bit about the whole case, because I think you did more research in terms of trial and things like that. So that was really interesting for me to find out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for episode number 48. And yeah, any last, I guess, things you want to mention to our audience?
Yeah, just keep subscribing and be sure to subscribe to our audio podcasts as well.
Yep.
Take care.
You can find us everywhere where you listen to the podcasts as well now. So this was fun. And guys, as always, stay safe and peace out.